Border Force officers at a UK port opened what looked like a routine package from the United States. But instead of clothes or electronics, inside they found gun parts. The parcel was addressed to a quiet home in the village of Kingsclear, near Newbury. The man who lived there was 58-year-old Philip Maylan. He wasn't a gang leader, he wasn't involved in shootouts, and he had no history of supplying weapons to organised crime. But what investigators were about to uncover inside his home would shock even experienced officers. Behind his front door was one of the largest illegal firearms collections ever discovered at a single UK address. A total of 28 working guns, plus replicas, ammunition, and weapon parts, all stockpiled inside an ordinary village house. Before we get deeper into the case, make sure you're subscribed for more UK true crime stories and investigations. When investigators raided Maylan's property in December 2024, they already suspected he was sourcing guns from overseas. That one intercepted package was the clue. But the full scale of what he had built up over 5 years was something they couldn't have predicted. During a 2-day search of the property, NCA officers began pulling firearms from cupboards, drawers, and hidden storage areas. 17 shotguns were discovered, alongside 4 Glock pistols that had been deactivated but re-engineered by Maylan to fire again. He also had 3 blank-firing pistols that he had converted into live-firing weapons. Each one represented a breach of UK firearms law. Alongside them were 11 replicas, including models of an AK-47 assault rifle, an MP-40 submachine gun, and several revolvers. Investigators also found a Bren light machine gun that had been deactivated but still formed part of his collection. In total, officers counted more than 100 rounds of live ammunition and a range of additional gun components. The firepower found in one small house was startling. Tim Lambert from the NCA called it one of the largest caches of firearms he had seen at a single address. It wasn't just about the number of weapons, but the potential impact. In the wrong hands, these guns could have caused serious harm. Even if Maylan claimed no intention of supplying them, the simple fact of keeping them made his house a target. Once the firearms had been secured, investigators turned to his records. They sifted through phone messages, emails, handwritten notes, and financial documents. What emerged was a clear timeline. Between 2019 and 2024, Maylan had spent at least £16,000 acquiring guns and components. He sourced them from multiple countries: the United States, Canada, New Zealand, Estonia, and the UK. He wasn't dealing with just one supplier. He was deliberately seeking out opportunities across borders, ordering piece by piece until the collection grew. When his parcel was seized by Border Force, emails showed his panic. He contacted a Canadian company, urgently trying to cancel orders for shotgun parts. But it was too late. Those parts had already been shipped. In fact, officers had to sift through more than 1,000 parcels in transit to retrieve the items linked to his orders. That detail alone demonstrates how far his purchasing activity had spread. The investigation also revealed that Maylan wasn't just a passive collector. He was actively converting weapons. Blank firing pistols became live firing. Deactivated Glocks became semi-automatic handguns once again. These weren't just antiques or replicas kept on a shelf. They were functional firearms, deliberately altered to work again. And under UK law, that's critical. Britain has some of the strictest firearms legislation in the world. The Firearms Act sets out mandatory minimums for prohibited weapons. Just one reactivated Glock pistol can carry a 5-year minimum sentence on its own. Maylan had 4, plus converted pistols, plus 17 shotguns. In legal terms, the scale was extraordinary. And yet, when the case reached Reading Crown Court in June 2025, Maylan received 5 years and 4 months in prison. He he pleaded guilty to 15 counts of possession of a prohibited firearm and 1 count of possession of ammunition without a certificate. His early guilty plea counted in sentencing, but the sentence still raised eyebrows. With a collection that large, and with multiple counts, some observers expected a much longer term. What investigators never found was a clear motive. He wasn't advertising the guns for sale. He wasn't linked to organised networks through encrypted messaging. There was no evidence he was supplying criminal groups. On paper, it looked like stockpiling for personal interest, but that didn't make it harmless. The National Crime Agency stressed that collections like his pose 2 dangers. First, the guns themselves are illegal and potentially lethal. Second, the person holding them becomes a target. Had criminals learned that a 58-year-old man in a quiet Hampshire village had an arsenal of 28 working guns inside his home, the risk of a violent robbery would have been very real. In other words, even if he wasn't planning to supply crime groups, the weapons could still have ended up in their hands. The context also matters. Firearm crime in the UK is relatively low compared to countries like the United States, precisely because of tight controls. That's why cases like Mayleen's make headlines. Seizing 28 guns from one house isn't just another raid. It's an event that could have altered the balance of availability on the streets. The NCA and Border Force emphasised that every weapon they recover is one less that can circulate through organised crime. Maylen's purchases also reveal something else, the global nature of the trade. He wasn't walking into a single dealer in Britain. He was sourcing from at least 5 different countries. He was navigating international suppliers, finding parts that could be shipped, and reassembling them at home. Each parcel on its own might not raise suspicion, but over 5 years the pattern was clear. His home became a private hub of firearms acquisition and conversion. The court outcome closed the case, but the unanswered question remains: why? Why spend £16,000 on firearms without ever firing them, without selling them, without a clear plan? The prosecution could only prove possession and conversion, not motive. Theories range from personal fascination with weapons to paranoia about security, to an obsession that simply grew unchecked. But without his explanation, the reason may never be known. What is clear is the impact. One intercepted parcel stopped a dangerous arsenal from being hidden indefinitely. A routine check by Border Force prevented 28 firearms and 100 rounds of ammunition from slipping into circulation. And a man who spent 5 years quietly building his collection is now spending more than 5 years behind bars. The Mayleen case is a reminder of how fragile the boundary can be. From the outside, it looked like a hobby, but every reactivated Glock, every converted pistol, crossed the line into illegality. Britain's strict firearms laws exist to prevent exactly this kind of situation, because history has shown that once guns are in circulation, they spread quickly and unpredictably. Thanks to quick cooperation between agencies, this stockpile was removed before it could cause harm. The case highlights the importance of vigilance in border checks, the persistence of investigators, and the fact that even individuals acting alone can create risks usually associated with organised crime. Philip Maylan's story stands as one of the largest personal firearm seizures in recent years. A village home turned into a warehouse of illegal guns, ammunition, and converted weapons. And a man who thought he was acting in private ended up in court, exposed for the scale of what he had built. If you found this breakdown interesting, make sure you're subscribed for more UK true crime stories. And if you want to see how gangs have smuggled entire arsenals into Britain using everything from microwaves to car engines, check out the video linked here next. Thanks for watching and stay safe.